In the field of law enforcement, when a decision has been made to use deadly force in accordance with constitutional standards, the hundreds of hours you have trained will all come together under the stresses of one pinnacle moment to stop the threat and save the lives of those you are sworn to protect. What fundamental base will you draw from in your time of need? The fundamentals of marksmanship are often discussed and applied in many training arenas around the world, specifically here at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers. Today we will discuss and demonstrate the fundamentals of marksmanship, the fundamentals of stance, grip, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, and follow-through. Let's take a look. We will begin by discussing the fundamental applications of the isosceles stance. Feet are shoulder width apart, toes pointed towards the threat. Slight bend in your knees, body weight over the balls of your feet. Your chest and shoulders will face the threat. Upper body mass slightly forward. Your chin is up and eyes looking forward. Your arms are extended to their natural point. Next, we will discuss the fundamental of grip. The thumbs forward grip is a preferred grip when shooting a handgun. The thumbs forward grip allows the shooter to control the handgun and minimize movement. Let's take a look. Begin by building your grip with the strong hand or your dominant hand. Place the web of the strong hand high on the back strap of the pistol, placing the index finger high on the frame. Raise the thumb to receive the support hand. The remaining fingers of the strong hand make contact with both the front strap of the grip and the base of the trigger guard. Apply firm and equal pressure to the grip of the handgun. Next, place the palm of the support hand on the opposite side of the pistol grip. Point the thumb forward, remaining fingers rotated to a 45-degree angle. Set the wrist of the support hand to provide control and assist in managing recoil. The heel of both the strong and support hand should make positive contact at the rear of the pistol grip. The support hand index fingers will rest high on the front strap while maintaining contact with the bottom of the trigger guard. Rest the strong hand thumb on the base of the support hand thumb. The grip should create equal pressure on each side of the grip panel, building and maintaining friction on the grip panels. This concludes the fundamental application of grip. Next, we will discuss the fundamental of sight alignment. The front and rear sights of a handgun are a necessary attribute to accurate shooting. Sight alignment is a fundamental that, if applied properly, will allow the shooter to place rounds on the intended target with both accuracy and precision. Accurate in relation to the aiming point and precise in obtaining consistent results. First, determine the shooter's dominant eye. Those who have use of both left and right eye exhibit binocular vision. Binocular vision, by definition, is the use of both eyes with overlapping fields of view, allowing good perception of depth. When discussing ocular or singular dominance, the dominant eye offers benefits to sighting, motor, and sensory dominance, the non-dominant eye being easier to suppress. Let's take a look. In order to establish eye dominance, create a small opening between your hands. Extend your hands forward with both eyes open. Place the opening over a distant object. Close the left eye independently to determine if the right eye is still in alignment with the distant object. If not, close the right eye to determine left eye dominance. The eye that maintains alignment with the distant object without obstruction is your dominant eye. Once determined, close or suppress the non-dominant eye while building sight alignment. Intentionally selecting the dominant eye decreases the possibility of parallax, the apparent displacement of an object seen from two different points, not on a straight line. Sight alignment of an open sight handgun is accomplished by aligning both the front and rear sight. The shooter views the front sight through the rear sight notch. The front sight centered in the rear sight and level across the top. Focus remains on the front sight. Both the rear sight and the target are blurred. Give detailed focus to the top center of the front sight. The eye will remain hard focused on the front sight when shooting a weapon, even while the gun fires and cycles. This concludes the fundamental application of sight alignment. Next, we will discuss the fundamental of sight picture. Let's take a look. Obtain sight picture by placing proper sight alignment over the center mass area of the intended target, specifically a finite point. Properly aligning the shooter's dominant eye, the rear sight, the front sight, and the target. This will conclude the fundamental of sight picture. Trigger control is the final influence on the handgun prior to firing. Trigger control by definition is the act of moving the trigger to the rear in a direct line and at a constant speed, allowing the gun to fire. The ability to isolate this individual act of movement without disrupting the sights takes concentration and practice. The trigger assemblies of handguns vary depending on manufacturer, such as double action only, single action only, or double and single action. These trigger presses are divided between the first press and additional presses. Although all these trigger presses follow the same principle. The goal of trigger control is to isolate trigger movement without disrupting the other fundamentals. Let's take a look. We will begin with proper trigger finger placement of the strong hand index finger. Center the pad of the fingertip on the face of the trigger. Finger placement may vary slightly depending on hand size of the shooter. Take time with a properly cleared handgun to discover which trigger finger placement works best for you. In addition, pay close attention to not allow any lateral or sideways influence on the trigger. This will disrupt sight alignment while firing. The next topic is trigger finger isolation and speed of movement. Once a shooter applies proper grip pressure, the movement of the trigger is separate and isolated from the additional muscles within the hand. Once again, trigger finger isolation takes mental focus and practice. The speed of the trigger is dependent on the distance to and size of the target. A target that is close to the shooter will allow faster trigger movement, and a distant target will call for slower trigger movement. The speed will remain constant until the weapon fires. As stated in the introduction, all handguns vary slightly in trigger design. Most handguns have slack or play in the trigger on first contact after proper trigger finger placement. A shooter will want to apply light pressure and remove any slack in the trigger. Taking up slack is often referred to as trigger preparation or prep. The trigger press will take place from this point. Once the handgun fires, control the trigger back to the point of reset. Trigger reset can be heard during trigger reset drills or felt when firing. Again, apply slight pressure and prepare for the additional shot. This will conclude the fundamentals of trigger control. In conclusion, we will discuss the fundamental of follow-through. Follow-through, by definition, is the completion and continuation of fundamentals leading up to, throughout, and after the handgun fires. Take the time to condition positive repetitions in your training program by maintaining and continuing your fundamentals of marksmanship for the possibility of an additional shot. Do not prematurely break down your fundamentals prior to the gun firing. What fundamental base will you draw from in your time of need? I am Rock Smith, and this has been a FLETC Talk.